Hey, how's it going, everybody? So in the past, I believe now 6 videos, we have learned the very most basic elements of Blender. We've learned how to manipulate the camera, how to move things around the scene, how to add things and delete things from the scene, how to edit your objects in object and edit mode. And the whole purpose of this series has been to lead up to your ability to be able to begin building things within this software. So everything we've done so far has been building up an awareness of how to move around the software and use it. And I want to finish off this beginner series by showing you how to get your first render. So after we have edited an object to something of our liking, how do we get an image from it that is more than just a screen capture? So, like I've said in previous videos, when you start Blender, the very first thing you start with is a lamp object, a camera object, and a mesh object. And the reason you start with these objects is because that is the bare essentials of what you need to get a render from the program. So, if I want to begin thinking about how to render this scene, the first thing I'm going to do is change this from Blender Render, this drop down, to Cycles. Blender Render is the first render engine that Blender was packaged with. They have since stopped making any updates to that engine, and they have moved to Cycles. Cycles is a real-time rendering engine that uses physically based rendering to calculate light and materials to a degree that is a lot more realistic than Blender Render could. So from this point forward, we're going to be using Cycles Render whenever we are trying to create a rendering of something. And even though it was very easy for me to change from Blender Render to Cycles Render, it's not so easy to change once we get deep into adding materials to objects, unwrapping them, and really getting into the depths of what rendering has to offer. So it's always best to just start from Cycles. Once you've swapped from Blender Render to Cycles, go ahead and press Shift-Z on your keyboard. And what Shift-Z does is it begins to render your scene. So we've gone from that kind of grainy looking cube on the screen to this much smoother cube that begins to show us how the light is being projected onto it. If I want to cancel rendering, I will also hit Shift-Z. So you'll notice if I grab this lamp and move it closer to the object, I'll get it right on there, and hit Shift-Z again, the light is a lot more intense. So you can see how moving that lamp around the scene begins to influence what you're actually seeing in the render. If you've never made a rendering before, this is always really exciting to see your first time. It's pretty amazing what computers can do these days. But let's say I place my light right there, and that is the rendering I would like to capture. While I can see the rendering in my camera viewport right here, I can't actually extract it from the program yet without using the camera. So here's my camera, and in order for me to see what the camera is seeing, I'm going to hit 0 on my number pad. Once I hit 0, I'm given the ability to see exactly what the camera is seeing within this boundary. I can zoom in and zoom out, and it'll still show me what that camera lens boundary is. So I'm going to zoom in pretty close just so I can have a better idea of exactly what the lens is seeing. If I press down on my middle mouse wheel and rotate, I'm taken out of that camera view. So I hit 0. You can also just hit 0 again, and it'll pop you back out. So you can move the camera around the scene in order to get the view that you are wanting to render. But in one of the first videos, I showed you that if you hit Shift F, then you're put into fly mode, and you're able to fly around the scene, and it's a lot easier than having to move around manually. So the same thing can be done if you hit 0 and you go into the camera and hit Shift F. You're then given control of the camera in fly mode, so you're able to move the camera wherever you want while seeing exactly what the lens is seeing. So I'm going to move the camera right here, and I think that's the shot I want to take. If I hit Shift Z, I can see again what the camera will see while the object is rendering. So now that I have my shot picked out, I have it at an angle that I like it at. My next step is to press F12. What F12 does is it renders the scene you have chosen from the active camera's point of view. So you can see here I have now rendered this image. If I want to save that image, then I'm going to come down to where it says Image over in the bottom left hand corner of this window. Click on that, and I'm going to Save As Image. I can also just press F3. Once you do that, you're pulled up into the File Explorer, and this is very similar to using the Windows File Explorer. However, Blender has its own internal Explorer, so it takes a little bit of getting used to working your way around this Explorer, but it's not any different than your Windows Explorer. You just have to kind of learn what the interface is trying to show you. So I actually have a bookmark for my desktop, so that's where I want to save my image. I'm going to save it as Cube Render. If I hit Save As Image, and then I minimize Blender and go over to my desktop, you'll see that I have this cube, and that's the image that we took from Blender. If I open Blender back up, we're still in that image screen. So if I hit Escape, which I just did, then it'll take you out of the render image and put you back into your camera. So I'm going to hit Shift Z, and that's back there. If I open this cube up and go in and edit it like we've done in some previous videos, I'm going to go back to object mode. I'm going to press 0, go back into my camera. I'm going to find another shot. Press Shift Z. I don't like the light there, so I'm going to move the light maybe somewhere over here. Hit Shift Z again. That looks a lot better to me. So I'm going to press F12. You'll notice my scene is rendering. I'm going to press F3. I'm going to save this as Render 2 on my desktop. If I minimize this, I can go back to my desktop, click on that, and you can see here I now have a rendered image from Blender. I'm going to hit Escape, and I'm back out. So this was a very basic introduction to rendering in Blender. That is the bare bones basic amount of information you need to extract a render from this program. So in some future tutorials we will be going into how to set up your render settings, how to assign materials, and how to work with UV unwrapping and the node editor. But for now, this is all you need to really get running in the program. So I will see you guys in the next video.